My parents banned me from dating after my sister's abusive ex, but they don't know I'm getting married tomorrow. My parents established exactly one rule after what happened to my sister Violet. No dating, no relationships, no romantic involvement of any kind until I turned 25, or they'd cut off all financial support and I'd be on my own. They didn't make this rule because they were controlling or religious. They made it because they'd watched Violet's boyfriend Derek systematically destroy her over 3 years, isolating her from friends, convincing her she was worthless, and finally putting her in the hospital with a fractured skull when she tried to leave. She was 22 when it started, the same age I am now. My parents couldn't protect Violet because they didn't see the signs until it was too late, so they decided to protect me by eliminating the possibility entirely. No dating meant no chance of choosing wrong. Simple math in their traumatized minds. The problem was that I'd already met Asher 6 months before they implemented the rule. We were lab partners in organic chemistry, and he had this way of explaining complex molecules like he was telling stories about tiny characters going on adventures. He made me laugh during the most stressful semester of my pre-med track, and somewhere between bonding over failed titrations and celebrating our first successful synthesis, I'd fallen completely in love with him. When my parents announced the new rule 3 weeks after Violet got out of the hospital, Asher and I had already been secretly dating for 2 months. I went home that night and cried in his apartment, convinced we'd have to break up because I couldn't survive without my parents' help paying for medical school. Asher held me and said we'd figure it out together, that 3 years wasn't forever, and he'd wait as long as it took. We became experts at hiding in plain sight. Asher was my study partner, my tutoring buddy, the friend who happened to live near campus, so I could stay late at the library without my parents worrying. We studied at coffee shops where we sat across from each other with textbooks open, holding hands under the table where nobody could see. We celebrated anniversaries in his apartment with takeout and quiet music, always careful that I left early enough to maintain my story. My roommate Priya knew the truth and covered for me constantly, texting my parents updates about our girls' nights when I was actually curled up on Asher's couch watching medical dramas and critiquing their terrible depictions of hospital procedures. For 2 years, we lived in this careful balance of secret relationship and public friendship. And somehow it worked because my parents were so focused on Violet's recovery that they didn't look too closely at my life. Violet knew, though. She figured it out about 8 months in when she came to visit me at school and saw the way Asher and I looked at each other in the campus center. She pulled me aside later and asked point blank if we were together, and I couldn't lie to her. I expected her to be angry or to tell our parents, but instead she hugged me and said she was glad I'd found someone who made me smile like that. She made me promise to be careful and to actually listen if anyone told me they saw red flags, because she hadn't listened and it nearly killed her. I promised, and she became our secret keeper, the only family member who knew the truth. She'd cover for me when I needed alibis and would text warnings if our parents were asking too many questions about my social life. She said watching Asher and me gave her hope that healthy love actually existed, that not every relationship ended in broken bones and restraining orders. Everything changed 6 months ago when Asher proposed. We were hiking up to this waterfall he'd been promising to show me for months, and when we reached the top, he got down on one knee with a ring he'd been saving for since our first anniversary. He said he knew we couldn't tell anyone and couldn't actually get married until my parents' arbitrary timeline expired, but he wanted me to know he was committed to waiting however long it took. I said yes while crying so hard I could barely see the ring, this simple silver band with a tiny sapphire that he'd chosen because he knew I'd need something I could hide. I wore it on a chain under my shirt where my parents would never see it, and we started calling each other fiancé and